Good morning to everyone who's joined us live today. Good afternoon and good evening as well in some time zones. My name is Nikhil and I head the North American business for Vantage Circle. Vantage Circle is one of the fastest growing platforms globally for holistic employee engagement, from employee rewards and recognition, workplace wellness, benefits, and pulse surveys. Vantage Circle provides an intelligent, unified platform, and they've got close to 2 million active users. Now, as a business, people and culture are what we're passionate about, and the experiences of the last 18 months have orchestrated the need to discuss topics we've often given less importance to. The Be Prepared in VUCA Times webinar series is our attempt to get better prepared. In our 7th episode today, we're being joined by Garry Ridge to talk about what leaders should not be during these tough times. But first, I'd like to introduce Garry to y'all, or attempt to introduce Garry to y'all. I'm a big fan of Garry's. Thank you so much, Garry, for joining us today. Garry is the chairman and CEO of the WD-40 Company. He joined the WD-40 Company in 1987 and held various leadership positions in the company before being appointed CEO in 1997. He is also an adjunct professor at the University of San Diego, where he teaches the principles and practices of corporate culture and the Master of Science in Executive Leadership program. He's passionate about learning and empowering organizational culture. He has helped establish at the WD-40 Company. In 2009, he co-authored a book with Ken Blanchard outlining his effective leadership techniques titled Helping People Win at Work, a business philosophy called Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. Garry also holds a position on the board of advisors of the famous Gorilla Glue Company, a product that I just used this morning because the handle of my microwave came out. So all I had to do is reach out for the Gorilla Glue. That's my go-to, and hopefully it's fixed. Thank you, Garry, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I assume you can see my screen. So I'm going to use some slides to guide me, but it's a pleasure to be with you here on a morning or wherever it is around the world. It's the sun never sets on leadership, that's for sure. So one thing that I'm very, very sure about is pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. I'm sure that everybody who is with us today has a more desirable outcome from a task or an effort if they really enjoy doing it. The interesting thing is that was something that was said by Aristotle, who was born in 384 BC. So when that relates to organizational culture, I think we've been pretty slow learners. And one of the people I'm going to share with you today is this fellow, or this is Al, the soul-sucking CEO. And I'm going to refer to Al a few times during our time together, but Al is famous for creating toxic cultures, and we all know that particularly during the last 20 plus months, toxic cultures have really been the biggest impact on organizations. We're going to talk about what people are calling the Great Resignation. I've actually renamed it. I call it the Great Escape, because I believe that people are actually escaping toxic cultures where Al, the soul-sucking CEO or the soul-sucking leader, is practicing leadership attributes and techniques that are not creating a great place to work. There was some research that was done during COVID time, and this is from the book that was written by my friend Hubert Joly. It's called The Heart of Business, and Hubert is accredited with the turnaround of the chain that he was leading in the United States, Best Buy. And this is pretty scary research. It basically says that they found that only 16% of people who were going to work each day were fully engaged, which means that 84% of people who went to work each day were disengaged or not given the opportunity to do great work. And I believe that culture is not an initiative. Culture is an enabler of all initiatives. In fact, culture is a competitive advantage. No more is that true than in these days of COVID. So what is culture? Well, I have a simple algorithm on culture that I want to refer to. And I adapted this from the book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I've been privileged to call Simon my friend for about 10 years. We've worked together on a number of occasions, but I wanted to simplify what I thought the elements of a great culture were. So culture equals, parentheses, values plus behavior times consistency. And the equals sign means what happens when. So for an organization, firstly, it has to have a clear set of values. And values are not there to do anything else but set people free. They're the guardrails, if you will, or the place to give people in organizations the free way to operate. And then you have to, and great leaders need to ensure that they don't only love their people enough to be able to applaud and reward them for doing great work, but they're brave enough also to be able to redirect behavior that wasn't in line with the culture and the values that want to be established within a company. And they have to do it every day. And an example of that is, I'm originally from Australia. Many years ago in high school, I remember being in my science class and my science teacher gave me a petri dish. And the teacher said, we're going to grow culture in this petri dish. So the first thing you did was put ingredients into the petri dish. And then the teacher was very clear. The teacher said, now what we're going to do is we're going to watch this petri dish every day, consistently review the petri dish. And we're doing that to identify when toxicity got into the culture. And as soon as it got in there, we have to do one of two things. We either have to treat the toxicity or we have to remove it. So building a strong culture in an organization is an infinite game activity. It's an everyday event. Back in the year 1999, just after being given the privilege of leading WD-40 Company, I went back to school. And as was mentioned earlier, I now teach at that school, the University of San Diego. And I did a master's degree in leadership. And that's where I met my dear friend and my mentor, one of my mentors, Dr. Ken Blanchard. He authored The 1 Minute Manager and New York Times bestseller on many books. And in that program, we were challenged in the final class, the capstone class, to develop a model that we would be able to take to our businesses and execute. And this is basically the model that I put together. And it's the elements I believe that we need to be aware of and need to practice in building a strong culture. There are 4 things, no doubt, that you need in business: people, purpose, passion, and products. So and then a leadership group in a company that's building a strong culture, their number one commitment must be to their people. We are a people-driven culture. Number 2, you have to have a purpose, a why, as Simon Sinek would call it, a true set of why we exist. Your values are there to protect you and to set you free. And then what I call the typhoon zone in this diagram is very important to businesses. Business must have a very clear strategy. Where are we going? And they must be bold in execution. How can we get there? One of the challenges that many businesses have is they disproportionately assign talent and treasure to these elements. So they spend too much time or not enough balanced time on people, purpose, and values against strategy and execution. And if you're just focused on the strategy and the execution, you're not going to create an environment where you have a highly engaged workforce or a high will of the people. And then finally, one of the things that's clear to us is organizations need to be learning organizations, continuous learners. So we decided that we would take the word failure out of our vocabulary and we replaced it with the statement learning moments. We don't make mistakes, we have learning moments. And a learning moment is described as a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared to benefit all people. And then this model sits on 4 pillars, the pillars of care, candor, accountability, and responsibility. In high culture, high employee engaged organizations, we care about our people. And that means as leaders, our empathy eats our ego instead of our ego eating our empathy. Ego is all about me. Empathy is about we. The second one is candor. What do we call candor? No lying, no faking, no hiding. We believe that most people don't lie. We believe people fake and hide. And the reason they fake and hide is because of fear, because toxic organizations, people like Al, create these environments where people don't feel comfortable speaking their own truth. Accountability. What do we expect from each other? What do I expect from you? And what do you expect from me? And how are we going to help each other achieve those goals? And then finally, responsibility. We call that our pledge to each other of responsibility. And I'm going to share more about that later. So I'm going to switch to a poll to get us started here. And I'm going to go over to you to activate that poll.
Right. No, absolutely. Thank you. What a great start, Garry, just laying the context and introducing us to Al. He's definitely someone we want to know about, but we don't want to know as well. And I'm going to put up our first poll on. We want all our participants to just think about this and answer which of the following leadership-driven initiatives are you seeing in your organization in response to the Great Resignation, or as Garry has coined it, as the Great Escape. I've actually heard someone call it the Great Reset as well. Someone calls it the Great Transition. There are so many terms coming up, but I like the sound of the Great Escape. And the poll should be on your screens now. And we can see the responses coming in. Let's give it another 30 seconds. We, of course, have the unfair advantage of seeing how the graph moves. Another 15 seconds. Let's get in some more responses. And I'm going to end the poll now. And results are on your screen. Garry, what's your take on this? Pretty even in terms of what they're seeing, but yeah,
it is pretty even, and honestly, each one of these behaviors certainly would is one to consider. So I think it's pretty even across all four.
But
of those
some
responses.
of them are reactive, and some of them are proactive. For example, an introduction of a retention-based scheme is that something that, of course, it is reactive. We're reacting to the movements that we see, but is that something that can be sustainable? Is that something that can actually become part of your culture?
Well, you can pay anybody anything to do something for a short period of time. So, as we'll get on to later, you can pay people to work in a toxic culture, but you're not going to get them the full self coming to work every day. So I think, trying to incentivize people to stay in organizations by just paying them more is a short-term and probably not very effective tool to
it is a stopgap arrangement for sure, but it's a reality. Companies are doing it even more now.
Some are.
To create that kind of handcuff. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. And as we move on, Garry, one of the things that we're very strong believers of as well as a business, as a culture, is the value of values, the role that values play. And I think of the many impacts it has had, the pandemic has exposed the true reality of company cultures. They've come to the forefront, and obviously company values have come under the scanner. Some of them have come under scrutiny. And as you take us through the other slides, one of the questions that I have is, how does one best proliferate and drive company values, and how do you measure the effectiveness of those values?
Right.
Pandemic or no pandemic?
Of course. So, again, one of the things we talk about is reducing fear, and we don't make mistakes. As I said, we have learning moments. There are two degrees of learning moments, however, that we need to be aware of. The first one is those that are made in areas of extreme demonstrated competence, and these are really less acceptable. These are the learning moments that we need to really pay attention to, where how do we demonstrate to those who are creating these learning moments ways to improve in areas where they have demonstrated past competence. And then there are those that are made in areas of experiment and learning, and these are very acceptable because from these you gain new insights that you're able to take to your business. One of the things that's really important too is we took the word manager out of our organization. You manage your bank account, you manage inventory, you don't manage people. What you're there to do is really to be the super coach to people. So when you think about a coach, what's the role of the coach, or what are the coach behaviors that are really valuable to the people we lead? Well, number one, the coach does not run onto the playing field and start to play the game. I've observing many different sport events over my lifetime, and particularly in high-end, high-stakes events. I've never seen Tiger Woods' driving coach get on the tee and hit the ball for him. I've never seen the coach of the Australian rugby team kick a ball on the field. So what is the coach doing? The coach is on the sideline observing the game in great detail, and also then helping identify plays to help the game improve and help the team win. The other place that the coach spends a lot of time is in the locker room, and in the locker room conversation is getting to know the team, getting to know the players, understanding their driving influences. So, and then finally, the great coach is never on the podium picking up the prize. The great coach is applauding those that are picking up the prize. A good coach can change a game, but in a business, a great coach can change a life. So we need to be coaches in an organization. So if I put this to you, imagine a place where you go to work each day, you make a contribution to something bigger than yourself, you learn something new, you feel safe and are protected and provided freedom by a set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families create happy communities, and happy communities create a happy world. And my goodness, don't we need a happy world today? And business has more opportunity than ever to create that happiness, because we are touching more people every day around the world than any other group of organization. So it's a great opportunity that we have. So when we talk about happiness, and in our company, we talk about memories. We say that we're in the memories business. We love to create positive, lasting memories in our organization. Our just cause is to make life better at work and at home, to make life better at work for the people who come to work as our tribe members every day, and to make life better at work for the people who use our product, and to make life better at home for our tribe members and at home for people who use our product. So simply, if you think about a company that sells a blue and yellow can with a little red top that's used to stop squeaks and repair and maintain products, if I was to ask you to write our why statement, it might not look like our why statement. But just take a minute to think about our why statement and then how it actually folds into our how statement. So why do we exist? We exist to create positive, lasting memories in everything we do. We solve problems, we make things work smoothly, and we create opportunities. We didn't mention any squeak there at all. And how we do that is we create positive, lasting memories by cultivating a tribal culture of learning and teaching, which produces a highly engaged workforce who live our company's values every day. Now, you mentioned values, and here's the word, live, not visit. So we want to have we want to see demonstrations. We want to see actual values in vision on people using them to make decisions and to integrate our company on a daily basis. So let's talk about them for a moment. What are they? So I love this statement by Seth Godin. He says, values can be described as people like us do things like this. So our values interestingly, are hierarchical. So the first value has more power than the last value. So in any situation, we ask and we tell and we encourage our tribe members globally by saying you can make any decision you want in the company without quacking up the hierarchy or having to climb up, the command chain if you use our values to make those decisions. So our first value is we value doing the right thing. Interestingly, our second value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. You would have noticed that those words are written into our why statement and into our how statement. We value making it better than it is today. We value succeeding as a tribe while excelling as individuals. We value owning it and passionately acting on it. And we value sustaining the WD-40 economy. Now, you would think as a publicly traded U.S. corporation that's traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange that our number one value would be to make money. Well, making money...
Or shareholder value, as they call it.
Shareholder value. Well, shareholder value or profit is the applause of people doing great work. So we say if we are to execute across all these values, the last one will happen, which is so true. So our values are embedded in our employee development program. We ask our tribe members every 90 days to share with us an example of how they've lived each one of these values. In every meeting you go into the company, you'll hear someone say, how does this decision, how does this action align with our values? In tough times, our values are the gold in our decision making because we can rely on our values to help unite us around our thinking and what we want to do. So we have another poll here. What tools, systems, and initiatives have you seen in your organization implemented to bring your company values to life? So I'm going to flip that over to you.
And the options are on your screen now. Is it aligning KPIs to company values? Is it creation of value champions who can walk the talk and use real-time peer recognition to do so? Experiential learning programs to understand workplace examples of demonstrating the company values. Again, like you said, in all your meetings, try and align your decisions to values. That's experiential learning, right? And how about linking values to hiring criteria? Right from the beginning of an employee life cycle, is that where it starts? And we're getting the responses in, and I'm going to just end the poll and put the results up. And more than 50% have seen that aligning KPIs to company values. But tell me something, Garry, from your experience and the way you actually manage performance. And I resonate with your statement that we manage everything to do with work deliverables. We don't manage people, but you do manage performance, right? You manage goals. How easy or difficult is it to actually align values to your KPIs? And let's say when you do your annual appraisals, can you actually put a rating to how you've demonstrated values? What's the best way to do that?
Thank you. There's a few questions there, but firstly, I'm going to make a comment. The poll question here that got 0 is should have got 100%, because the number one, the most important attribute of building a strong culture is attracting people who can align with your values. If you were to go to our careers page at WD-40 Company and you pop up our careers page, the first thing that comes up is, these are our values. If you do not align with these, don't call us, because we employ for values first, competency second. I can teach anybody to be very competent in an Excel spreadsheet, but unless their values are aligned with ours, it doesn't work. Now, second part of the question is, if anybody on this call is doing annual reviews, they're failing. You do not do annual reviews. You do, and I recommend purchasing a copy of my book, which is called Helping People Win at Work. The annual review process is Neanderthal. What we do is we need to have ongoing coaching conversations, and in those intervals of personal interaction. So at our company, at the beginning of the year, the coach and the tribe member together, from their job specification and taking our strategic initiatives into consideration, develop their plan for the year. And in that plan, we have 2 or 3 key elements of the job description of the essential function, and we actually describe what an A looks like around that essential function. Then there would be 3 to 5, maybe 7 goals during the year that are aligned with our must-win battles. And the third part of our system is our values. And we have people every 90 days share with us how they have lived our values in the last 90 days. And we only have 2 measurements of values. You either live them or visit them, and we don't want a lot of visitors. And that third section of our employee development program heavily weights the annual outcome of what the grade is for the person. Now, the person doesn't have to wait to the end of the year to get their grade. They know as they're going along during the year by interacting with their coach where they need to turn up the volume or where they need help in coaching or competency improvement. So there's no surprises. So it's an integrated system, and our values absolutely are the key to success within our organization.
Absolutely. And I think, what this poll has actually revealed is why we need to have these conversations and why your insights are so valuable, because this tells us what a lot of companies are not doing, which is, they're not thinking about values at the time of hiring, which you said it has to start right from the beginning.
And what we find is now in the Great Escape, people are coming to our company and looking for somewhere that they can align with values because they're escaping from organizations where they don't align with their values.
They don't align with those values.
So on responsibility, we have a responsibility pledge that we take in the organization. We all take it. We call it the Maniac Pledge. And here it is. I am responsible for taking actions, asking questions, getting answers, and making decisions. I won't wait for someone to tell me. If I need to know, I am responsible for asking. I have no right to be offended that I didn't get this sooner. And if I'm doing something others should know about, I'm responsible for telling them. So what this does, it takes out the na, finger pointing, I don't know, I should have been told, behaviors that normally happen within the organization. And this lives as part of our culture, is the Maniac Pledge, which is I have no right not to do what I need to do to ensure I know what I should know or to tell people what they should know. Very strong. Belonging. One of the biggest desires we have as human beings is to belong. Maslow's hierarchy to self-actualization talks about your basic needs, which are, am I safe and do I have food and water? And then the psychological needs of love and belonging and self-esteem. And this is where most organizations fall down. Everybody who is with us today has left a company, a party, or maybe even a relationship because they didn't feel like they belong. Why is there a great escape right now? Because people don't feel like they belong. In fact, interestingly enough, the Society of Human Resource Management, their executive network just recently in a big conference they had in Chicago, were focused in and spotlighting the need for belonging. And again, belonging is really the answer to diversity and equity and inclusion, because if you don't feel like you belong, then you're not being included. So they say belonging is achieved when all individuals experience a sense of acceptance and inclusion. And I think that's one of the keys. And we've been talking about belonging for 20 plus years because we call ourselves a tribe, and we define what a tribe is in the organization. Why do we call ourselves a tribe? We call our employees tribe members. As individuals and as an organization, we aspire to live up to the behaviors of a tribe. For us, a self-sustaining and interdependent tribe share common attributes such as values, knowledge, celebration, ceremony, and a strong sense of belonging. Each tribe member is recognized for their specialized skills and their contributions to benefit the greater good of the tribe. Through these efforts, our tribal culture becomes a self-sustaining place where people want to stay and grow. And I love the definition from Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe. The earliest and most basic definition of community, of tribe, would be a group of people that you both help feed and defend. And one of the big pluses we had going through COVID was we kept our promise, a group of people that come together to protect and feed each other. And that's why having a high engagement as we have is so important. Why am I showing you a boomerang? Well, one of the things that we looked at is the behaviors of Indigenous peoples around the world over time. And being an Australian, I looked at the Australian side. And the number one responsibility of a tribal leader is to be a learner and a teacher. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And if that's the case, then our job as a tribal leader, number one, is to be a learner and a teacher. So these are the attributes that we identify as the strong attributes to keep our tribe together. The number one is a learner and a teacher. And if we were to go back thousands of years and observe a group of Indigenous Australians sitting in the middle of the hot desert of Australia, what would you find the tribal leader doing? You'd find the tribal leader teaching the tribe members to throw a boomerang. Why? Because without the boomerang, survival was limited because it was the tool of survival. So our job as leaders in organizations is, number one, to be a learner and a teacher. Number two, our responsibility as a tribal leader is to ensure we have this set of values, that we create this belonging within the organization, treating people with respect and dignity, caring about them, being candid with them, making clear to them what we're going to hold them accountable for and what we're going to be held accountable for, and using our Maniac Pledge to be responsible. As tribal leaders, we have to be focused on the future to ensure that we're doing what we need to do in the organization. That's absolutely playing the infinite game. We have to look at what specialized skills we need to have and make sure we're bringing that competency to our business. We have to be warriors to protect our people, a group of people who come together to protect and feed each other. And then, of course, we never need to forget the need for celebration and happiness. We need to celebrate in great times and be grateful for all we have all the time. So let me introduce you a little more to Al, the soul-sucking CEO, very undesirable person. Maybe it could be Al, it could be Alice, it could be a CEO or a leader. So, the moment you want to escape is the moment that you have spent a lot of time in the presence of Al. And why? Well, let's take a quick look at some of Al's behaviors. Number one, Al he's a master of control. He knows it all. He doesn't need anybody's help. He doesn't need to bring competence. He doesn't need anybody else's brains at the table. He's the know-it-all. Number two, he's corporate royalty. He maybe has the largest office in the building. He probably has a private parking space. Al must bow down to Al because Al has climbed the corporate ladder. He is the king of the castle. Al thinks learning is for losers. Why would you want to learn anything when Al is the know-it-all and knows it all? Al believes that ego eats empathy instead of empathy eating ego. With Al, it's all about me, 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 me. What am I going to get? He has all the answers. And in times when things go good, he takes all the credit. And when they go bad, he blames everybody else. He must always be right. No one should ever criticize Al. He must always be right. He has a fear-based culture. He reigns by fear in many different ways. He loves to micromanage. He has his fingers in everything. He doesn't give anybody the opportunity to be an individual and to really reap the rewards of their own success. He doesn't follow through on his commitments. He lets people down, and he hates feedback. So I'm sure many of you have experienced some of the behaviors of Al in organizations that you've been in over time. But let's talk about the servant leader. Your role as a leader is even more important than you might imagine. You have the power to help people become winners. And my dear friend Ken Blanchard shared that. So let's take a look at What are the behaviors of the servant leader, the one who's going to create the great culture? Well, number one, the servant leader involves and loves their people. They understand that everybody coming to work each day is someone's precious son, child, mother, daughter, sister, husband, cousin, auntie, uncle, whatever. So they really respect the people. Leaders are always in servant leadership mode. We're there to serve. We're there to help out, not mark their papers. So our job is to help them step into the best version of themselves. Leaders are expected to be competent. We're passionate learners. We're continually looking for that learning opportunity. They're connected. Leaders are connected with emotional intelligence. They have a true caring desire to understand their people. So this is where their empathy eats their ego instead of their ego eating their empathy. They love learning moments because they see them as opportunities. They see them as ways of identifying what can work and what can work better. They have a heart of gold and a backbone of steel. You can depend on them in times when you need them, but you know they'll be there for you when the need is right. They're champions of hope. They're not leading by fear. Leaders, they know that micromanagement is not scalable, so they have to empower their people. They do what they say they're going to do. You can always believe that they will be there to support you, and they love and treasure the gift of feedback because they feel that feedback is the thing that drives all that they do. So you've heard me talk about what OWL is and then what the servant leadership is. So we're going to switch now back to you to another poll.
And your options are going to be on your screen now. We're coming into a new year. We want to know what leaders should not do as we settle into the future of work while combating the great resignation or the great escape. The pandemic is still not over. We hear of a new variant that's scaring the living daylights out of people. With all of this in context, all of this in the background, what do you think leaders should not do? We've got some interesting options here. Continuing to pursue task excellence instead of relationship excellence. Trust external benchmarking more than your own employee pulse. Delay digitization of people and cultural processes, initiatives. Persist with a culture of control, which is what Al is, right? A culture of control. That's what he professes. And we've got in our answers, and I'm going to put the results on the screen. And we've got, again, I think a combination of responses, but largely tending towards we want to see that there is more of focus on relationship excellence than task excellence.
And I think, I would have loved to have seen the final question with a much higher score because it's not about control. It's about freedom.
It's about freedom.
Yeah. And, I think that there's a great lesson that I learned from someone called Nicole Melkowski. She was a fighter pilot, flying in the U.S. Air Force, and she talked about in times of turbulence, you don't take hold of the joystick. It's called pilot-induced oscillation. And what happens is in these times, we tend to want to control the joystick. And as you come into a turbulence, if you do that, you have erratic moves. You've got to loosen up on the control and fly through the turbulence. So I think control is not the answer right now. So I'll move on and I'll just give you some examples of how if you do not exercise the behaviors of Al, the soul-sucking CEO, what the results could look like. So here they are. This is our employee opinion survey results. This was our survey that we did in January of 2020. So the results came out in March, just before the pandemic hit. We also then did a follow-up survey in January 2021 because we wanted to see as we shifted and many of our behaviors have changed, were we draining cultural equity? So firstly, you might remember at the beginning I shared with you that the average employee engagement during the high point of COVID was 16%. We have 93% employee engagement. 98% of our people globally say they love to tell people they work at our company. 95% say they know what results are expected of them. Why? Because you might have remembered that one of our key drivers is accountability. What do I expect from you? What do you expect from me if you're clear about it? So 95% of people say they know that. We talked about values. How do we do it? So 97% of our people globally say they feel that their values are a good fit with the company culture. So again, you have to measure to see whether the values are aligning. I respect my coach. 97% of our people globally say they respect their coach. How many organizations would actually even say they like their boss? The most important relationship in any organization is the relationship that the leader has with the person they lead. And in our organization, we particularly put the word respect in there because we think respect is so important. And I'm excited about the future. 94% of people say they're excited about the future. Now, here's an interesting point. In our mid-COVID survey, that 94 went to 98%. So here we are in the middle of the most disruptive event that we as humans will probably, hopefully, ever go through. Why would people be more excited about the future than they were before the event started? And we asked our people that, and they said, we feel safe. If we can get through this together, we can get through anything together. And we did. And in fact, in the year that just finished for us in August, we had the best year in the company's history. We had the best year in revenue, the best year in profitability, and the highest employee engagement. So I call that the will of the people. What do I mean by that? So if you have low will and good strategy, so let's say that you have low will of the people or low employee engagement, that low will is being created by you having a plethora of owls in your organization, by you having all of you're using all of those leadership tactics that are driving poor culture. And you had, so low will of the people or employee engagement of 10. But your strategy, you have marked it up and you took it to some, people who mark strategy and they say, you've got a very, very strong strategy. But the will of the people is low. 10 times 70 is 700. But let's say you've got a high will of the people. So you've got 80% of your people going to work every day that are engaged, that are engaging with the strategy. They're doing their best work. They're going home happy. And a strategy of 70. 80 times 70 is 5,600. So you can have the best strategy in the world. I don't care how good it is. But if you don't have high will of the people, you're not maximizing the output of your organization. Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I would say that culture makes breakfast a feast, because if you have that, it works. And we've proven purpose-driven, passionate people guided by their values. Here's that word again, guided by their values. Purpose-driven, passionate, guided by create amazing outcomes. So our job, or your job, collectively, is to make sure we create an environment where our tribe members wake up each day inspired to go to work, feel safe while they are there, and return home at the end of the day fulfilled by the work they do, feeling they have learned something new and contributed to something bigger than themselves. This is the world we envision. If we can create this world for our people, they will take care of our customers, and that in turn will take care of our stakeholders. So, as my opening slide said, it's all about the people.
The people.
And as Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible till it's done. Now, let me just give you a little bit of evidence of that. One final comment. In the 20 years that we've been executing the servant leadership, learning moment philosophy, we've 5x'd our sales in the company. Our market cap has gone up from $250 million to $3.2 billion. And we are now marketing our product in 176 countries around the world. But we just sell oil in a can. No, we don't. We exist to create positive, lasting memories by solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops around the world. And we do that by ensuring that it's the culture is our number one competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Garry. I'm sure we have tons and tons of questions, and everyone can just type in their question in the comments. I have a few questions myself, and while everyone types in their questions, maybe I'll go first. I want to, nudge you a little more on values, and I want to ask you: can values change? Is it okay for values to change? And the reason why I'm asking you that is because one very large company that we work with have actually gone and changed some of their values in the aftermath of the pandemic. And this has also, come back and basically orchestrated that even values need an audit, not just, your books and your financials. So what are your comments on that? Can values change?
Yeah. The answer would be, first I'd answer this, should you have a different set of values, not should they change? And I would say in many organizations, yes, they should, because they don't have values that are driving the behaviors they want. For example, integrity, honesty are not values, they're prerequisites. And so if you think about our values, doing the right thing, creating positive, lasting. Now, each one of those values in our organization has a paragraph written underneath it that describes the behavior around that value. And over time, we have tweaked those descriptions sometimes, but our values have remained the same. Now, over the 20-some year period, we may have described how that behavior is a little bit different. But my question to you, my challenge to people out there is, do you have the values in your organization that drive the behavior that you want to have in the organization and that set people free? And if not, you don't have the right values. And the other thing, most importantly, are they hierarchical? And a lot of organizations miss the power of hierarchical values, because if they're hierarchical, it stops people cherry picking the value they want to use because of the situation.
Right. And there is a question that has come in from Diane, which is, if a company gets too ingrained with specific values, how do they change and how do they accept new ones? And like we've said, that the values shouldn't change, but maybe the descriptions, the adoption or the adaptation might need to be tinkered with. And how does how is that change accepted?
Well, you cannot gift values to people within an organization. They have to feel part of the development of them, or coming into the organization, they have to feel aligned with them. So the magic here is how did you develop the values in the organization? Was it a collective program of identifying? Certainly the leaders have to give the guidance of what we're looking for, but then how well do you talk about those values? How do you see those values being lived in the organization? And I'll give you an example of how beautiful a value can be used in an organization. Just one simple example. Our second value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. Some time ago, I was in a meeting in one of our facilities, and there was someone in that meeting who was not creating a positive, lasting memory. They were having a very bad morning. My petri dish identified some toxin in that room. So at the end of the meeting, I went to that person and I said, hey, let's go for a walk. So we walked out of our building, and I'm looking in a trash can and under a car and, whatever. And this person said, what the hell are you doing? I said, the you that I know and love was not in that room today. You were not doing what you normally do, which is creating positive, lasting memories. What's on your mind? What's getting in your way? Are you okay? And we had a conversation, and that person had a bad morning. And so we did some coaching, and at the end of the conversation, we hugged, and the person said, yeah, you're right. I mean, that I shouldn't behave like that. That's not me. I'm not being the person I want to be today. And I thank you for, redirecting my behavior. They went back into the building, and I observed them going to a couple of people that were at that meeting, and they were apologizing. The next day, people were coming to that person and saying, are you okay? Is everything okay today? Is there anything I can do for you today? So there's actually putting values to work, not just having them framed up on a wall to be able to do something with.
And we have another question that's followed up, which is Dan is actually complimenting you and saying that WD-40 sounds like a utopia, but what are your challenges, if any? And I want to just add to that and say that despite having a culture, an ecosystem where everyone can thrive, where everyone feels valued, where everyone is aligned, has the great resignation. Have you seen any impact in your company?
There's two questions there. So as far as the Great Escape or the Great Resignation is concerned, our levels of retainment are exactly equal to they were last year or the year before. Now, we've had some people who've left the company for reasons other than what I would call the Great Escape. They've taken lifestyle changes, moved to a new country, moved to a new city. No, we're not utopia. We have challenges every day, but for us, they're opportunities and they're learning moments. And, this is simple, but it's not easy. Leadership is not easy. Managing is easy. Leadership is not easy.
Absolutely, because you have to take the brunt. And it's as humans, it's naturally not so easy for you to take the brunt, take the blame. So, I completely echo that.
It's a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted, and the genius is in the end.
Garry, one more question from my end. We still have some time. And you very beautifully articulated how you use the term and the concept of tribes at WD-40. But you would have people who join you from other organizations where people still talk about teams and not tribes. How do you help them psychologically make that shift? And has that been a challenge?
By sharing the attributes of what a tribe is. It's no use saying we're a tribe and then not describing what it is. So we can say we're a tribe because learning and teaching is so important to us, because our values are so important to us, and these are the things that drive our behavior and keep us safe, because belonging is important to us, and this is what we do to create a culture of belonging. And so it's not just saying you're something. What is the observable behaviors that actually validate what you're calling yourself?
True, absolutely. And we have another question that's come in from Michelle, who's saying, can you address redirecting behavior and starting to do that after a history of people not being held accountable?
Oh, that's a challenge. It's not going to be easy, because they're used to living within an environment that where redirection was not common. So you have to start somewhere. And the first place you start is, do you have a clear purpose and a why? Have you reestablished the values? And then now these are the values that we're going to operate around, and let's start the journey. And it's simple, not easy, and time is not your friend. It's that word consistency that will take some time.
Right. And it's about actually, it's also about habits. And I just want to add that, while that's something that we didn't call out, but when you say culture is all about consistently repeating those behaviors that are driven by your core values, we're actually saying, you start seeing the outcome when it becomes a habit, right?
Absolutely. That's why we have people talk about it every 90 days. They actually have to share with us the habit that they've used, if you will. Tell us how you did the right thing in the last 90 days. Tell us how you created a positive, lasting memory in the last 90 days. Tell us, show us, because that's how you're going to, it's only through action that you build habit.
Absolutely. So there aren't any more questions, but if they come in, we'll probably answer them on email. I just want to quickly recap some of my takeaways and hopefully everyone's. And Garry, please feel free to add in as well. We started by saying toxic cultures are the biggest threat to operating in difficult times. We're recoining Great Resignation as the Great Escape because it's cultures that people are escaping from and trying to join a culture, be part of a culture or a tribe where they can associate with. And a lot of times, in my view, it's also linking personal values that you've grown up learning from your parents and from your homes to the organizational values, creating that mental connection. Of course, culture is a competitive advantage. Values set people free. I haven't heard anyone say that, and I think that's a very beautiful way of saying that. Obviously, as an organization, you need structure, you need boundaries, but within those boundaries, that freedom is so important for people to really go out and do that. Replacing failure with learning moments, and we all say that we learn from failures, but failure at the end of the day does have a negative connotation to it, right? So learning moments has a different ring to it. So that's another takeaway for me. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. I have so many examples, and we're short of time. Otherwise, I would have shared a few that I know because I'm a big sports buff. There, big takeaways: talk about how every decision aligns with our values. The 90-day practice that you have, I think that's fantastic because that's what experiential learning is about, right? Sharing stories, storytelling. Of course. I don't have to reiterate, but don't do annual reviews. That's a different conversation altogether. But good you brought it up. We're in times of continuous performance management or performance coaching. So that's what it is. You either live values or visit values, and visitors just come and go, right? It's as simple as that. This is a beautiful way of saying it, right? You're not immigrating. You're just visiting. So you have your own personal agenda. That's about it. So those are some of my takeaways. Thank you so very much. I'm looking at some of the comments that have come in, Garry, and they're brilliant. I think everyone who's live with us has had an absolute ball listening to you. And I'm sure those that couldn't and who are going to get the recording as well are going to come back with some great feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Life's a gift. Don't send it back unwrapped.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.